A spectacular year, and I'm so thrilled about everything that you do. I don't know that you know this, but LGs really make the difference on campus. What happens is it's sort of like a sports team. The franchise players always get the fanfare, yet it's not the franchise players that really move the ball. It's the frontline people. It's the people that are up front seeing and feeling and having everything go on in front of them. You get to meet students. And to have a fantastic year, what I want to do is just draw out a recipe for you to be able to do that. Because here we serve near 30,000 students. Think about that. Each one of you have hands-on with about 115 to 120 students each. You change lives. Yes, you're going to serve food, you're going to do all of that, but the most important thing that you're going to do is impact and enhance people's lives. And I want to talk to you about how we do this. In every one of your school restaurants and your cafes, we have posters, we serve students posters. I want to remind you of what that means. Every single student that comes in front of us, that we have eye-to-eye contact with, we're going to smile real big. And I know that some of us here in this room, smiling is not really our gig. We have a hard time smiling. So what I want you to do right now is just turn to that person that's sitting next to you or at your table or in the chair next to you. Just turn to them and give them a great big smile. Yes, just like that. Now, turn back to that person that just smiled at them and say, "Gosh, you have a magnificent smile." Go ahead, do it. Yeah. Now, turn back to that person and say, "You betcha I do." And when you do that, look what happened in this room. Everybody started laughing. Everybody started giggling because there's something about a smile that elevates people. That's the second thing that we do every single time that we see a student. We elevate them in a huge way. I want to encourage you to keep doing that. As no restaurant or no cafe anywhere, what we do is we rally for students in a big way too, as you well know. What happens is as soon as we find out the dietary needs of students, we meet those needs before they show up. And when they show up, that need is met. And in meeting that need, what happens is they're not singled out. They're not in front of everybody knowing they have special needs. We do that in a remarkable way because we smile at students, we elevate students, and we rally for them because we value students like nobody else. As we've talked before, most of us here in this room, we came to work here and serve here in school nutrition because we wanted to be with our kids when they were out of school. When we came here, we didn't know very many students, yet it didn't take long, did it? It didn't take long, and all these students that were in our restaurant or our cafe became our students. They became our kids. They became our students. And you see them in the neighborhoods, you see them at the stores, and they recognize who you are. And they sometimes will say, "Hey, teacher," because the truth is, when we serve students, not only do we smile at them, not only do we elevate them, not only do we rally for them, not only do we value them, we educate them. And you and I, as LGs, get to educate them in the most important things of life. Character. I so admire everything that you do. And so what I would like to do in these next few moments together, I'd like to suggest to you a recipe that'll work throughout the year to give us a spectacular year this year as we serve students. The first thing is, whenever you come into your school restaurant or your school cafe, one of the first things you do every morning when you walk in is you walk over to the ovens and you set the temperature and you let them heat up. You let them come up to the place, the optimal level, usually 350 degrees. And then you go to work doing everything else you're going to do before you place the food that's going to be served to students. I'm suggesting that before we get into the recipe, we've got to do the same thing with our soul. We've got to set a temperature in our soul. And that temperature I call the temperature of serve. And so this is what I mean by that. I realize that every single one of us have issues that go on at home. We have issues that go on where we volunteer. We have emotional ups and downs. We have puppy dogs that are not doing well. We have cats that have ran loose already. And we are feeling that when we walk in to our cafe or our restaurant. And here's what has to happen. For us to be able to have a spectacular year and fulfill this recipe, we have to walk in and set the temperature of our soul to serve, which means that I'm here to serve for the best interest of everybody else, all of my customers. Now, who are my customers? My customers here at a school restaurant or a school cafe, number one, always number one, are the students. Every time they come down to the students. Number two is probably the parents. Somehow we have to communicate and connect to moms and dads and that parental person that fulfills that role in our students' lives. And then thirdly is the school staff, the campus staff that's here on campus. We have to learn how to do that. And so when we set our temperature to serve and not be served, it gives us a clearer understanding of how to do what we must do. And so the first thing that we've got to do to the ingredients to having a spectacular year, the very first ingredient is simply this. We have to recall the why we're here. As you walked in today, as you came in from the different places in this room and you took your seats, every one of us, we come in and it's like a family reunion, isn't it? Hey, how are you? I missed you. What did you do over the summer? We have this family reunion. And in the midst of that, we begin to recall the why we're still here. The reason that we are here primarily is for our students and the children we serve, isn't it? It truly is. And as I'm saying that right now, what's happening across this room, you're remembering students that you're going to get to see in just a few days. They're going to be coming in for breakfast. And some of those students that come in for the very first time in weeks are going to feel the love of you that they haven't felt from anybody because their lives are so different than they were in our grandparents' day. If you look back in our grandparents' day, what was happening in most families, you had dad who went to work and mom who took care of the home. And it was mom and dad. Well, as time has traveled on, today it's exactly the opposite, isn't it? In some homes, there's not two parents. In some homes, it's a mixed kind of a situation. And there's turmoil in homes. And that's why when our students show up, they need us to be there focused on them. And that's in recalling the why is primarily for children and students. The second thing is this. When we walk in, because we are here because we want to serve our students, our kids at home, now we're serving students here. And that's really the second thing, is these ones that are coming in. And then thirdly, this new work family, those people that you hugged their necks just a few minutes ago, that you saw them and you high-fived them and you asked them what they did over the summer and you checked with them where they went on vacation, how did they like the islands, how did they like going to Disneyland and all those things they did, because they became part of the reason you return every single year. Sitting around you is hundreds of years of experience in serving students. Because you've been here. Some of you came here thinking, I'll only be here for a couple years. And now you're at the 20 and the 25-year mark because you've been involved in school nutrition for so long. So today, what I'd like you to do is just think about your why. Why are you here? Because let me let you in on a little secret. Listen in, lean in. The reason you're here has very little to do with the vast amounts of money that you're making. Because you're not being paid as much as you could be paid someplace else. The big reason why you're here is for students. Because those students have transcended into being your children. And you have your favorites. Everybody does. And that's okay. So remember the why. Remember the why. The second thing, to be able to have a spectacular year, what we've got to learn how to do is regularly eliminate the irritable annoyances of the day. The irritable annoyances of the day. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, what I want you to do is right now, just look at the screen. Don't look around, because I'm going to ask you a question, all right? You know that in every single cafe, every restaurant, there are some people that I refer to as pesky people. They're difficult to get along. Let me describe the pesky person. Number one is they're power drainers. Number two, they're exhausting to be around. Number three, what they do is they systematically cause people to not speak up. They just don't speak up. And then number four, they keep the agenda on what's negative, what's dark, what's annoying, what's wrong, and they always seem to represent the unknown they. And then we get frustrated, we back off of it for a little bit, and we think there's going to be this relaxation, that the pesky person is going to back off and they're going to change. And what do? They yield right back to their historical behavior. That though you're thinking of somebody that's sitting close to you, or you're thinking of somebody that maybe is in the office, or somebody that makes a delivery, yet let me let you in on a little secret. For somebody, you are their pesky person. I know, it's tough, to realize that maybe I'm the pesky person to somebody else. It's sort of like on the way to work sometimes. Have you ever been on the freeway and the person in front of you is going too slow? They're going there and you're in a hurry, and so you honk your horn at this person that's going too slow, and you might even point at them with your middle finger, tell them your IQ or your age, or you're pointing at the ceiling. You know what I'm talking about. And what you don't know is the person behind you is honking the horn and pointing at you with their middle finger, because to the person behind you, you're the pesky person. And the pesky person for you is the one that's in front of you. That's what happens. And to really have a spectacular year, we've got to learn not only to regularly recall the why that we're here, we've also got to eliminate annoyances. We've got to eliminate those. So here's one way that I want to remind you to do that, okay? When you get home today, I want you to get a Q-tip, a regular old Q-tip, and just hold it up and look at it. And as you hold it up and look at it, how do you spell Q-tip? How do you spell it? It's Q-T-I-P. That's an acronym for helping us to eliminate those annoying annoyances. Q-tip stands for this: quit taking it personal. When we can learn how to do that, and we return to the temperature in our soul of serve, things will be better. We'll have a spectacular year. And let me just tell you the best time to deploy the Q-tip, all right? Maybe you could bring a Q-tip and put it up on the bulletin board so everybody reminds you. Don't stick a Q-tip in somebody's face, because if you do that, you'll be their pesky person. Don't do that. It's to remind you. And maybe on the bulletin boards across all that we're at, maybe we could put a Q-tip there to remind us to quit taking it personal and return to the temperature of my soul, which is serve. And as we do that, things will be better. You'll have a spectacular year as we do this. Now, third ingredient that we're going to put in this spectacular year that's ahead of us. The third ingredient, now somebody tell me, what was the first ingredient? What was the first ingredient? That's right. We've got to recall the why. What's the second ingredient? Yep, I heard you. We've got to remove and eliminate irritable annoyances. The third one is this: because we serve people, we have to learn how to communicate connectively and creatively transform relationships and partnerships around us. And we have to learn how to do that. Now, what does that mean? Now, I realize We've talked about this quite a bit, yet I want to just rehearse it for just a second. I want to remind us of what that means, all right? First of all, in this room right here, there's a mix of communication modalities that come out like this. Number one, and it's not in order of importance, we have some visuals in this room, we have some auditory people in this room, and we have some kinesthetic people in this room. And that creates dynamics in the way we hear, see, and feel everything. And so we have to learn about personalities and connect to them, hook up with them, connect with them through their communication modalities by using the right language. And we'll spend some more time in that area, yet that's the third ingredient to having a spectacular year. Now, what's the fourth ingredient? The fourth ingredient is simply this. You and I must learn how to regularly invest in ourselves. Regularly invest in ourselves. Some of us here took airplane rides over the summer. And as you did that, one of the things that happened, regardless of the airline that you flew on, if you flew international or you flew here in the continental United States, some of you got to go to Hawaii. And you spent 2 weeks in Hawaii. And you had a blast. Yet every single one of us that got on an airplane, whether we were going someplace or we were returning, this is what we heard at some point. Please look up and pay attention to the instructions that we're going to give you in case of problems here on the airplane. And they told you where the exits were. They told you where the 6 exit doors were. They told you in case of a power failure that the lights on the floor would come up to direct you to those exits. They taught you how to buckle your seatbelt. They taught you those things. And then one of the things they said, we're not expecting cabin depressurization, yet if it happens, a mask will fall from the ceiling. It'll fall from above you. And then they instruct you, don't they? They say, be sure and take this mask and firmly put it on the person next to you. And after that happens and it's firmly on the person next to you, put yours on. Is that what they say? You're right. Not one airline says that. They all say, put the mask on yourself first. And here's why. Because they realize that if you're not breathing, you can't help anybody else. And that's why you and I must learn how to invest in ourselves on a regular, sometimes daily basis. All kinds of ways to do that. One of the ways that we can do that is upgrade our influencers. Upgrade the people and the things that influence us. For instance, many of us in this room, many of us, we have a regular diet of listening to the news or watching the news. And we read the news. We get it all over the time, all the time. And we get all this negative things coming floating into us. I'm suggesting to get rid of that, just to begin to replace that with upgrading your influencers. Find ways, read some good books, listen to some good books. If you need some ideas on how to do that, if you'll reach out to me, I'll give you a good list. If you go to my website at mattupton.net, there's a suggested reading area there. We must do this, invest in ourselves, because what we do is a high energy as we serve students. It's a high energy time. So, number 5, what's the fifth ingredient that we've got to participate in? Not only do we need to recall the why, not only do we need to eliminate the annoyances, communicate connectively, invest in ourselves, we need to pause and point to what's good. Now, here's what I suggest. I suggest that at least once a week, in every school cafe and every school restaurant, we need to have a stand-up meeting that lasts about 120 seconds, just 2 minutes. And we need to stand elbow to elbow in a circle or around the prep table. And we need to look at each person and we need to say, tell me 2 things that's really good about our restaurant. And we need to point to what's good. The second thing that I would like to encourage every single one of us to do this year is I'd like us to go on a mission, go on a reconnaissance mission and find people doing what's right and what's good, and then high five them or elbow them. when you elbow bump somebody, what you're really saying is, we're in the same family and we're at the same table, and I saw you do something that was really, really great. And we need to talk about those things, because whatever we talk about, we get more of. And let's just be honest. Let's just be honest. We talk about some things that we don't really want, yet when we talk about the negative things, what happens is we get more of that, don't we? Every time we talk about it, every time we visit about it, every time we meet at happy hour, every time we meet at Starbucks, wherever we meet, and we start talking about what's not good, what we don't want, what happens emotionally? We get more of what we don't want. And so I'm encouraging us that as we pause and point to what's good, every single week, be an influencer and influence everybody to stand around the prep table or stand where we're shoulder to shoulder and just pause for 2 minutes. That's all I'm asking. And say to each other, what's good about what we're doing? And you might even look at somebody and say to them, what I like about being here is you. And rather than just being vague about it and sort of vanilla about it, tell them the thing about their character, about them personally, that brightens up this place and allows us to serve. Number 6, ingredient number 6 is this: learn how to elevate other people. We're so good, and I know some of you say, well, it's just not in me to elevate people. It's just not something that I do. Listen to me. If you can speak down about people, the flip side of that is speaking up about people. We can do that. My grandmother used to say, Matt, if you haven't got anything good to say, you knew my grandmother, didn't you? You knew my grandmother. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. For some of us, let's just be honest, for some of us, we'd be quiet most of the time if we deployed that, wouldn't we? We wouldn't be talking at all, because we speak down about people on a regular basis. And I'm saying, just turn that around, use that same energy, and elevate people. Speak good about people. Get caught talking well about somebody. And I know what some of you are thinking. Oh, Matt, you don't understand. Everybody that I know, it's just hard to talk good about them. So listen, what you do then is deploy something else. That which you'd like to see in their character, find that and begin to brag about it in every little piece. Anything that even remotely looks like they're moving in that direction, brag on that. Congratulate them on that. And ingredient number 7 is just to remember. Just to remember. It's really not an ingredient. Check the temperature on a regular basis. Always check the temperature. Every single food, every single entree, every single thing that we serve to students, we always get that little thermometer and we check to make sure that it's up to speed on the temp. And so I'm suggesting to you and I, during this year of having a spectacular year, check the temperature of your soul on a regular basis and make sure it's set to serve. So before I turn this back over to everybody else here, let me remind you of the recipe, the ingredients to this recipe. Always set the oven of your soul to serve, okay? Then the ingredients are simply this. Number 1, recall the why often. Recall the why. Why are we here? Number 2, ingredient number 2 is eliminate the annoyances. Eliminate the annoyances. Number 3, communicate in a connective and creative way. Number 4, invest in yourself on a regular basis. And number 5, pause and point to what's really good. Pause and point to what's really good. And number 6, elevate others on a regular basis. Thank you for being here today.